Lord Sauron, do you know Fëanor? Maybe later we'll encounter more characters like him, but now he is the most vulnerable elf to follow my deed. Since Valar were not as easily swayed as they were good little creatures that will always do what our enemy wants them to do. He created the 3 jewels, the Silmarils, but they were far from the first set of jewels he made. They were just his most known. Fëanor was the mightiest in skill of word and of hand, more learned from his brothers. His spirit burned as a flame. But his case was not just about the Silmarils. It was also about his family line. As the only son of Finwë and Miriel, with Finwë's remarriage to Indis, this leaves Fëanor in the most vulnerable state for having thoughts against his new half-siblings. But this will take a while. First, I will have to cut ties between creatures, for example, the elves and the Valar. Then, once an elf, Fëanor openly speaks against the Valar, then I will be able to pit the elves against each other, especially Fëanor's half-siblings. After his mother, Miriel, died, his father Finwë later went ahead and married Indis and had Fingolfin and Finarfin. This is also another point of vulnerability. To cope with his disliking his new family members, he decided to start crafting, and he would eventually craft the precious Silmarils. However, the children were considered great and glorious, and if they had not lived, the history of the Eldar would have been diminished. This is because our enemy created the elves to be abundant and immortal. Once I pit the elves against the Valar, I will be able to pit the elves against each other even within their own family lines. Fëanor doesn't really say much about the Silmarils though. It was a long and secret project, and he really doesn't want anyone to know. This is why he's the most vulnerable. Since he didn't want anyone to know, I was able to see them. They were nice jewels indeed. Those jewels would be strong enough that nothing, not even violence, could mar or break it within the kingdom of Arda. Yet that crystal was to the Silmarils, but is, as the body to the children of Ilúvatar, the house of its inner fire, that is within it and yet in all parts of it, and is its life. In the inner fire of the Silmarils, Fëanor made of the blended light of the trees of Valinor, which lives in them yet, though the trees have long withered and shine no more. For a while, I will pretend to complete the term of his bondage of dwelling in the Durrës of Mondos alone. He will be granted pardon by Manwë and would have a brief moment of good. Though on a side note, Fëanor hates me now because he thinks I'm out to get his Silmarils. The Silmarils to Fëanor are prized possessions, especially since he made them, considering how strong they are as not even violence will break them. But they will be mine. I will make sure he also hates the Valar as well, which would really help in aiding the elves against the Valar, especially as they really only enhance Fëanor's precious Silmarils, and Eru wants him to finally get along with the Valar. My plan is to do the opposite. Varda hallowed them, and Mondos foretold that the fates of Arda will lay locked within them. But we don't want to let them know this. My job is to convince them that the Silmarils were being taken from him by the Valar. That way, Fëanor will be convinced that the Silmarils were all his. Then I will be able to end the friendship of the Valar and the Eldar, since Fëanor is an elf of the house of Finwë. Then the Silmarils will be mine. Next, I will convince him that his half-brother Fingolfin will seize these jewels for himself since, again, Fëanor loves his Silmarils. First, I pit him against the Valar. Then I pit him against his half-brother. See what I'm doing here? I'm pitting the creatures of Arda against each other, which is what you will see in all my schemes. See, our enemy, Eru, has this idea that elves, dwarves, the Valar, while they serve different purposes, they were all meant to live in Arda and bliss, despite being different in body and spirit. Our plan is to pit them against each other through lies and deception. First, I made sure Fëanor's true desires to keep the Silmarils. Then I lied to Fëanor, saying that the Valar are against him, to get him to speak openly against the Valar. Then, after he speaks openly against them, I finally pit him against his half-brother. This is because Fëanor always had his issues with his half-brothers, and after pitting him against his own family, the elves will start war against each other and start reaching for Middle-earth. This will leave all the power to me. Ta-ta for now. Melkor Morgoth.